Instead of ignoring the whispers, Joan Rivers' daughter has finally addressed the stories that fans have traded for years. She admits there were more secrets behind the scenes, including the exact number of surgeries her mother endured, some of which were never meant to be public knowledge. What she describes goes far beyond gossip about looks. She traces how each operation marked a different chapter in Joan's life, from her career's toughest moments to the times when she felt she had to chase a certain image or battle insecurity. According to her daughter, Joan was strategic, and sometimes secretive, about every cosmetic change. Some procedures were small tweaks that even closest friends couldn't spot, while others were attempts to feel in control after setbacks or public criticism. In private, Joan joked about her plastic surgery, but grew serious when discussing the pain that came from people's harsh judgments and her own high standards. Now, for the first time, her daughter reveals just how many times Joan sat in the surgeon's chair, and what she said about her choices once the cameras were off. These answers bring to light why Joan felt she had to keep so much hidden, and what she wanted her fans to understand about the pressure she faced every day. Naturally, Joan Rivers never held anything back on stage or on television. Her jokes flew without warning, often poking fun at herself, friends, celebrities, and even her own private life. She became famous for a no-filter attitude, willing to say the things most people kept inside. Fans saw her as fearless, bold, and often outrageous. She was always ready to take a risk in her comedy, not shying away from sensitive topics or personal embarrassment. In her routines, she cracked wise about her marriages, plastic surgeries, aging, and the things she faced as a woman in show business. Some people cheered her for breaking the rules, while others winced, expecting a line she might cross at any moment. Still, the real story did not end on the stage. After her death, more hidden parts of Joan's life emerged, especially through her daughter, Melissa Rivers. In the book titled Joan: Tales of Mirth, Mischief, and Manipulation, Melissa opened up about what went on behind Joan's sharp banter and tough skin. She revealed the complicated sides of her mother, including the private struggles and moments that never made it to the jokes or camera. These behind-the-scenes glimpses showed the person underneath the performer, with a mix of mischief and vulnerability, and the ways Joan used both humor and manipulation not only to succeed, but also to cope with the challenges she faced. The daughter's stories painted a fuller picture, helping people see beyond the fearless act and into the world that Joan worked so hard to control and keep moving forward. Growing up in Brooklyn in 1933, Joan Rivers was known then as Joan Malinsky. She showed signs of her intelligence and ambition early, working hard in school, and eventually graduating with high honors from Barnard College. In those years, Barnard was especially known for fostering strong, creative women, and Joan stood out among her peers. After finishing college, she turned her sights to the world of entertainment in New York City during the 1960s. This was a time when the city's comedy clubs were lively, echoing with laughter, and Joan quickly found herself drawn into their orbit. She began to perform stand-up routines, learning to read the crowd, and shape her sharp sense of humor into a style both clever and direct. Her talent soon led her to television, where she got widespread attention for her appearances on programs such as Candid Camera, where her wit fit perfectly with the show's playful tone. Soon, her big break arrived, and she became a frequent guest on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. These appearances allowed Joan to share her unique comedic voice with a national audience, earning admiration from both viewers at home and others in the industry. Her journey from a bright student in Brooklyn to a fixture on primetime television reflected both her intelligence and her determination to make people laugh, even in a field not always welcoming to women at that time. After gaining recognition for her sharp humor and quick wit, Joan Rivers stepped into the spotlight of television during the 1970s. She landed her own program, That Show with Joan Rivers, where her energy and lively presence made her a standout among other personalities of her era. Audiences were drawn to her candid interviews and comedic timing, but Rivers was not content to stay within the confines of just one show. She became a frequent guest on various popular television programs, sharing the stage with legends. Viewers saw her on The Carol Burnett Show, where her ability to improvise and keep up with comedy greats revaulted her reputation even higher. Another familiar spot for her was Hollywood Squares, a place where her personality and humor shined alongside other celebrities. Alongside television appearances, Rivers explored different aspects of entertainment, eager to express her creativity. She turned her attention toward writing and directing, committing herself to crafting new ideas and stories. Her ambitions culminated in the release of her first film, Rabbit Test, in 1978. This foray into film allowed Rivers to showcase her skills behind the camera as well as in front of it, displaying her drive to shape her own career on her terms. After years of comedy success, Joan Rivers faced some of her hardest times in the 1980s when she launched her own TV talk show on Fox. She had been a regular fill-in host for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show, and for a long time they were close both on and off stage. Attempting to step out on her own, Joan hoped her new show would be a triumph. However, the opposite happened. The show struggled in the ratings and failed to capture a large audience. This failure came with heavy consequences. Johnny Carson, who felt betrayed by Joan's move, never spoke to her again, ending their friendship abruptly. The cancellation of her show after barely a year only added to the pain and embarrassment Joan felt attendant around the same time. The stress and pressure of these failures weighed heavily on Joan's family life as well. Her husband, Edgar Rosenberg, who was also her manager, was overwhelmed by these professional setbacks and the fallout. This strain led to Edgar's tragic suicide in 1987, a loss that devastated Joan and their daughter. During this period, Joan faced both public criticism and private heartbreak as her career seemed to stumble and her personal life fell apart. The ripple effect from one failed show impacted almost every part of her life, challenging everything she had built up to that point as she struggled with loss and disappointment in the public eye, trying to navigate a way forward after so much went wrong. After facing setbacks, Joan Rivers made a remarkable return to television in 1989 by starting her own daytime talk show, The Joan Rivers Show. This new venture gave her a fresh stage to showcase her sharp wit and lively personality. Lasting for 5 years, the program drew in a wide range of viewers who appreciated her honest interviews and bold humor. In 1990, the show earned her a Daytime Emmy Award, showing that she still held a powerful place in the world of talk shows and entertainment. Driven by her passion for performing, Joan continued to expand her presence. She stayed busy writing, performing stand-up, and making appearances. Together with her daughter Melissa, she co-hosted the show Live from the Red Carpet, turning awards season coverage into a cultural event. Through this partnership, Joan combined her signature comedic touch with a fun, disarming approach to fashion commentary, connecting with new audiences and keeping loyal fans engaged. Despite earlier hurdles, she used her determination and energy to redefine her place in entertainment, balancing her distinctive voice with new opportunities and collaborations. Even as she grew older, Joan Rivers showed no signs of slowing down. She appeared on popular TV shows like Louie, bringing her sharp wit and unique humor to new audiences. In her final years, she also took roles in movies, including a part in Iron Man 3, proving she could adapt and remain relevant in both comedy and mainstream entertainment. She continued to entertain people on stage and screen, loyal to her calling as a performer. Despite facing the challenges that come with age, she maintained her busy schedule and stayed visible in the public eye. Her energy and drive inspired many, as she seemed unstoppable and always ready for the next project. Tragically, her remarkable career was cut short after a routine throat procedure in 2014, when unexpected medical complications led to her death. Following Joan Rivers' death, attention shifted to the serious events that took place during her medical procedure. It was found that the clinic where she was treated had made significant mistakes in her care. Investigators discovered errors such as a lack of clear communication among the medical team, improper monitoring, and decisions that did not follow accepted standards. These findings revealed critical issues in how the clinic operated and handled its patients' safety. Joan's daughter, Melissa Rivers, took action after learning about these failures. She filed a lawsuit against the clinic and the medical staff, seeking not only justice for her mother, but also pressure for accountability and change. By 2016, the lawsuit was settled out of court, closing the legal conflict but opening the door for public discussion about safety in medical offices. Melissa made it clear that she wanted to look beyond what had happened and work toward improvements in patient care. Her focus became raising awareness and encouraging reforms to help prevent other families from experiencing a similar loss. The outcome of the case brought more attention to the need for better oversight and safer practices in outpatient settings, making the story of Joan Rivers' last days part of a broader call for change. After Joan Rivers passed away, her daughter Melissa Rivers felt compelled to write a memoir that dug deep into the complex, often stormy relationship she shared with her mother. Through the pages, Melissa paints a portrait that mixes pain, anger, and humor, echoing the way Joan tackled her own life. The book touches on Joan's insecurities, the pieces of herself she hid behind her quick wit and sharp tongue. Melissa shares stories where laughter and frustration live side by side, stories that show Joan's laughter didn't always come easy. Instead, it was sometimes an armor or a way to deflect her inner doubts. Plastic surgery features heavily in these reflections, not as mere gossip, but as a central thread in Joan's search for self-acceptance. Joan's openness about her many procedures wasn't just shocking, it was her way of controlling the narrative, of making something that frightened her less scary through jokes. Yet, behind the comedic mask, Melissa reveals a woman who struggled with the pressure to look perfect in a world that didn't give second chances to women who aged, especially on television. Over time, Melissa describes how Joan started to face her insecurities directly, coming closer to feelings of acceptance, even as the old doubts never truly vanished. The memoir blends anecdotes from their private lives and professional work, revealing both the public legend and the private struggles. Melissa doesn't hold back, speaking honestly about her own pain and anger, but also the admiration she felt for Joan's relentless drive and ability to turn hardship into comedy. Stories switch from tales of red carpet events to quiet moments at home, always circling back to the way Joan's life was shaped by both insecurity and strength. Through it all, Melissa's voice weaves humor through sadness, never minimizing the struggle, but always finding a reason to laugh, just as her mother would have wanted. Although many people discuss Joan Rivers' place in the world of feminism, she never called herself a feminist. Instead, she spoke of doing exactly what she wanted, making her own choices without needing a label. While she valued the idea of chivalry, which means appreciating when men are polite and do things like open doors, she also saw worth in traditional gender roles, the classic ways men and women acted in the past. However, at the same time, she became a pioneer in comedy, a field where men made most of the rules and had most of the jobs. Joan Rivers was confident, sharp, and unapologetic, never letting those old traditions stop her from reaching new heights in her career. People admired her for breaking barriers and showing that women could be successful and hilarious on stage, even if they didn't fit the mold that was expected of them. Her approach puzzled some who thought she should fully declare herself a feminist, but she preferred to let her actions speak louder than any statement or label she might use. While Joan Rivers kept her own ideas about how women and men could interact, she still changed what was possible for women who followed her, proving you could respect traditions and still break new ground in your own way. After Melissa Rivers lost her father to suicide, it changed the relationship she had with her mother, Joan Rivers. The loss brought a heavy strain between them, and their bond became complicated as they struggled to process their grief. Melissa spoke openly about how hard it was to rebuild trust and connection with Joan after such a traumatic event, describing arguments and misunderstandings that sometimes pushed them further apart. Still, both mother and daughter wanted to get back what they had lost, and as time moved on, they found new ways to reconnect. Working closely together on professional projects helped them rekindle their bond. Whether collaborating on television or live events, their partnership became a way for them to communicate and support each other. Melissa described their connection as unique, shaped by shared pain, but made stronger with time. They chose to face their issues and support each other, learning to laugh, argue, and work alongside one another, showing how complicated but strong a mother-daughter relationship can be. However, Joan Rivers had a very unique approach to humor and friendship that set her apart from many others. She became famous for telling jokes about her famous friends, and Elizabeth Taylor was a frequent subject. Rivers would poke fun at Taylor's frequent marriages or her weight, turning them into punchlines that audiences loved to hear. Many people may have thought these jokes were meant to be mean or cutting, but that was not the full story. Melissa Rivers, Joan's daughter, made it clear that her mother's humor was much more than just teasing or mockery. Behind the scenes, Joan's jokes about friends were not intended to hurt, and they often were a sign of affection or camaraderie. For Joan, humor was a way to connect and to show love, sometimes in a tough or sarcastic way, but rarely in a truly malicious one. On stage, Joan knew how to walk the line between teasing and cruelty, often aiming the sharpest barbs at herself. Her mockery of her own life, looks, and troubles managed to soften the effect of jokes about others, creating an atmosphere where everyone, herself included, was fair game. By making herself the subject of ridicule as much as those around her, Joan signaled that her humor was an act of inclusion rather than exclusion. Inside the world of comedians, this style created bonds, and even the people Rivers joked about often understood her intent. Whether taking aim at Elizabeth Taylor or at herself. Joan's blend of self-deprecation and friendly insult built a reputation for honesty and warmth, as strange as that may seem given the sharpness of her wit. Melissa's insights helped fans and critics alike see that, for Joan Rivers, the real target was the absurdity of life and celebrity, not the people themselves. Her jokes offered a shorthand for love between friends who understood that making fun was another way of saying they mattered enough to be noticed, and that laughter could bring people closer, no matter how outrageous the punchline seemed on the surface. For years, Joan Rivers was famous not only for her sharp wit, but also for her candid attitude about plastic surgery. She never hid the fact that she went under the knife many times, often turning her obsession with cosmetic procedures into part of her comedy act. Visits to the surgeon's office became an open secret, almost like punchlines delivered straight to her audience. Yet the real story, as Melissa Rivers detailed in her memoir, went far deeper than jokes. Joan underwent a staggering 365 procedures over her lifetime, a number that surprised even those closest to her. This relentless pursuit of physical change was driven by a persistent, gnawing insecurity about her looks. Joan struggled with self-image since childhood, feeling the pressure to look perfect in a world that valued beauty, especially for women in the spotlight. As her fame grew, so did her dissatisfaction with her appearance. Every wrinkle, every perceived flaw seemed to demand correction, and the cycle of surgery continued year after year. While she made the subject into humor, those close to her knew the vulnerability hiding behind the laughs. Over time, after hundreds of changes, and many years in the public eye, Joan finally reached a stage where she could look in the mirror with acceptance. The fight for external perfection slowly gave way to something kinder, a sense of peace with herself, hard-won after decades of insecurity. After Joan Rivers passed away, her passion for living in style became even more apparent through the auction of her belongings. She was known for her deep appreciation of luxurious items, and never hid her love for the finer things in life. Instead of keeping her treasures locked away, Joan made a point to use and enjoy her high-end jewelry, designer clothes, and quirky collectibles in her daily life. The selection of items displayed at her estate sale gave people a glimpse into just how much she valued luxury, but also her sense of humor and flair for the dramatic. The pieces up for bid included dazzling necklaces, bold rings, and accessories that sparkled almost as much as her personality. Each item told a story, from the classic to the eccentric, all revealing how she believed expensive things deserved to be worn and appreciated, not just saved for special occasions or tucked into velvet boxes. People who visited the auction saw firsthand that Joan's love of beauty extended beyond ordinary taste. Favoring both traditional elegance and playful oddities, she surrounded herself with art, rare handbags, and unusual pieces that reflected her unique sense of style, turning every room into a showcase. Even after her death, the sale of her belongings inspired others to celebrate their own sense of luxury, and to remember that life's special items are meant to be enjoyed while you can. At family gatherings, and in everyday life, Melissa Rivers would often reveal the quirky side of her mother through unusual stories, such as Joan Rivers hiding cash in milk dud boxes. This odd habit spoke volumes about Joan's sense of humor and resourcefulness. Her handbag was also a treasure trove of odd items, never the predictable lipstick or tissues. Instead, she'd stash away unexpected things, perhaps just to amuse herself later, or to be prepared for whatever curveballs life might throw. These peculiar routines set Joan apart, but she wasn't just unconventional in private. Her approach to parenting was a mix of old-school values and bold instructions. On one hand, she treated certain traditions with respect, keeping some of the familiar boundaries that many parents hold dear. On the other hand, she often surprised Melissa with advice that broke away from strict rules. Joan would encourage her daughter to take risks, particularly when it came to love. She never wanted Melissa to shy away from experiences out of fear or custom, even urging her to be more daring than polite society might recommend. The same spirit pushed Joan herself to take chances in her own life, not only in show business, but in her personal choices as a mother. When Melissa was a baby, Joan did things her own way, challenging norms and following her instincts, even if it raised eyebrows among friends or relatives. These stories from Melissa reveal not only the warmth between mother and daughter, but give a glimpse into the singular personality that drew people to Joan Rivers both on stage and at home. Surprisingly, outside the glitz and fast-talking punchlines, Joan Rivers embraced quiet hobbies for relaxation. Needlepoint provided her with a sense of calm, her hands creating detailed and colorful designs, while her mind could wander or focus as needed. At home, this craft stood as a stark contrast to her energetic public performances, offering a comforting escape. Her partner in these moments was often the glowing television, tuned to the latest true crime shows. Consumed by suspense and real-life mysteries, she enjoyed unwinding with stories that gripped the nation, finding fascination in human motives and the details of each case. According to her daughter Melissa, Joan had a special fondness for combining humor with her artistic side by crafting pillows bearing witty or touching slogans. These handmade creations were often both funny and poignant, blending her unique voice with her love for crafting. Creating these pieces allowed her to express herself in ways apart from the demands of celebrity, offering insight into the private joys she found behind the scenes. Surrounded by her needlepoint supplies and the drama of true crime, she held on to routines that balanced the boldness of her public character with the quiet pleasure of personal hobbies. Melissa's recollections highlighted how Joan worked these activities into her daily life, retreating to her favorite chair to stitch while discussing the twists of whatever unsolved case was on screen. The needlepoint pillows lined her home, each slogan a reminder of her wit and warmth, creating a cozy legacy that lingered far from the cameras and crowds. In these quiet settings, Joan Rivers recharged away from the stage, finding sanctuary in stitches and stories, each minute spent crafting or watching a new mystery giving her a sense of peace and fulfillment. Despite her humor often appearing biting or caustic, Joan Rivers' relationships and friendships were layered and remarkable. On one hand, she maintained a notorious list, a fake flight manifest, of those she did not like, almost as if she playfully staged her own theater of antagonists. This list was infamous among her friends, a running joke, but also a way for Joan to keep boundaries where she felt necessary. Her wit in handling grudges was as sharp as her comedy, turning what might be bitter into something almost surreal, carried along with her characteristic exaggeration and flair. Yet on the flip side, her connections with people were deep and numerous. She was surrounded by friends from all corners of the world, many of whom admired her both for her tenacity and her vulnerability. These relationships went beyond superficial Hollywood camaraderie. Joan's warmth and humor attracted people to her, whether over dinners, jokes, or the shared confessional moments backstage. After her passing, her daughter Melissa honored these wide-ranging bonds in a special way. Joan's ashes, rather than being kept in a single place, were distributed to various locations around the globe, signifying the breadth of her friendships and the global tapestry of people who had been touched by her life. This gesture resonated with those who knew her best, as Joan had often gone to great lengths to maintain her friendships, investing time and love into people even as she held others at arm's length through her legendary lists. Her life was defined by this dual approach, equal parts humor, coping mechanism, and genuine affection, leaving a legacy that reached well beyond her career and into the hearts of those lucky enough to call her a friend. Since her presence on stage and television, Joan Rivers became known for her sharp wit and fearless humor, making her a household name. When President Barack Obama commented on her passing, he noted her special ability to make America both laugh and think. This acknowledgement from a president reflects just how far-reaching her impact was, resonating across audiences and generations. Her comedy delivered more than just laughs. It prompted people to see the funny side of daily struggles and to reflect on the world with a lighter heart. Her journey, marked by resilience and unapologetic individuality, held a mirror to life's quirks, reminding people not to hide what makes them different, but to celebrate it. Through her willingness to laugh at herself and encourage others to do the same, she exemplified how joy can be found even in the most ordinary or uncomfortable moments. By embracing their own peculiarities, people could learn, as she did, that laughter brings relief, connection, and sometimes even wisdom. Her influence went beyond her jokes and performances, planting the idea that it's possible to find humor and happiness each day, despite whatever ups and downs